local party.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Darkling Chronicles. I hope you're having a lovely day. I told you before that I'm going to look into some Goatman stories, and my goodness, did I find some really great stories. They actually made me poo my pants a little bit, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't want to go into a forest on my own even more now. Although I do go to a place here that's the forest, and I do go with the dog, but I feel like it's the daytime. It's really nice. I don't get any creepy vibes. And there's like people who come around, like they're, I suppose in America you'd call them rangers, but I don't think they're called rangers here. Forest folk. The forest folk come and check that everyone's all right, you know? So it's not too bad, but I don't want to go into the forest in America anywhere ever. So don't even invite me. I'm not doing it. I'm going to read these stories to you. They're quite long, so this is probably going to be quite a long episode. I've just got to start by saying the pages are still growing massively, and it's actually getting to a point now where it's really difficult to reply to everyone. And if I haven't replied to you, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be that person. Like, it's not because I think that I'm better than anyone. I just work full time. I do some social media stuff outside of work. My God, do this podcast. I do all the videos for my pages. It's I love it. I'm not complaining, but replying to people and replying to comments, as you can imagine, is very time consuming. It does take up quite a lot of time, and I love doing it. So I'm going to do as many replies as I possibly can, but please bear with me if I don't get back to you straight away and you've sent me a story. It's mainly because I'm trying to keep my sanity in check. Now listen, we're going to get straight into it. Let me just read you a little bit about what the Goatman is. So this says, the Goatman is one of America's most famous cryptids, but unlike Bigfoot or the Mothman, there isn't just one version of the legend Goatman. It's really a collection of regional folklore about a creature that's said to be half human and half goat, usually standing between 6 to 8 feet tall, covered in dark hair with horns, hooves, glowing eyes, and an unnerving human intelligence. So the first story is from someone called Vivid Engineering 4088. And they write, the Appalachian Mountains hide a dark secret. I should have listened to my father. And they say, hello, Redditors. My name is John. I live in the Appalachian Mountains. So do my parents. But they live 2.5-ish miles away from me. I often have to walk along the trail to get to my parents' house, as the roads are dangerous and often referred to as a death wish. So I try to avoid driving them. One evening around 7 p.m, while I was at my parents', I checked my CCTV cameras that are located in my house, and I saw that my 11-year-old dog was vomiting all over the floors. So I decided to make a move back to my house. My father had always told me about the tales and folklore about the trail. He used to tell me at night the trails were extremely dangerous and man-eating creatures would come out from hiding to haunt the people who chose to walk them at night. Since there was no actual evidence towards these tales, I never really believed him until last week. My father warned me that if I didn't get home in time for sunset, bad things would come upon me and nobody would be there to help me. I just shrugged it off and said to him, "We're fine, Dad. I don't believe in those stories anyway." My father gave me a concerned look and then continued to read the book he had his eyes glued on prior. I started my walk at 7:48 p.m. The sun was only just setting at that time. It was only around a 2-mile walk, so I was under the impression I could get back to my house in time. I was terribly wrong. I quickly regretted my decision to not bring my car. The floor was fully soaked and everything was slippery since it had rained badly at some point during the day. And it was due to start again in a few hours. But I was going to be home by that time, so it would be fine. At around 8:20 p.m, it started raining again. At first, it was only a light pour, then it became extremely violent very quickly. This is when I realised that this would definitely slow me down. At 9 p.m, I had only travelled a mile and a bit, so I still had a big chunk of walk to go. By this time, the sun had basically set, and it was almost pitch black in the woods. But I had bought a head torch. My father said to me when I was a child that the creatures didn't like the light, and if I was to shine a light on them, they get extremely agitated and lash out on me. But I shrugged it off and continued to turn my head torch on. After about 5 minutes of my head torch being on, I heard a big crunch close behind me. The sound sent shivers down my spine, but I just thought that all of my dad's warnings was causing me to hear things that actually weren't there. But I was brutally wrong. I kept hearing the crunching behind me and human like footsteps following me. It got to the point where I had to turn around to check. The second my head turned around fully, I was locking eyes with an 8 foot tall creature of some sort. It looked slightly human, but its skin was dark, more like a mossy black colour than human skin, and it resembled melting plastic. It had a massive slit along its face, which I assumed was its mouth. However, it did not have any eyes or nose. I turned forward again and just started running until I couldn't anymore. Before I even realised it, I was back at my house. I don't know how long I was running for or how far I actually ran, but I was definitely pretty shook. I am now sat in the comfort of my home with my dog, who is still throwing up occasionally. I can't forget what I saw. I don't think I ever could. I want to say I was just hallucinating, but I wasn't. I am never walking that path at night again. Ever. Well, we don't blame you, because guess what? Nor are we. Not a chance. Not on your Nelly, mate. I don't know what they were thinking. I had lots of thoughts about the story. One, why didn't the dad or the mum offer this person a lift home? Like, spinning all these stories about all this stuff that's out there, give them a lift home then, innit? I don't understand. I don't understand why you wouldn't offer your child a lift home. The second thing that crossed my mind was that maybe they don't drive. But it sounds like they live out in the sticks, so surely they did drive. Maybe the dad just wanted to teach this, the kid a lesson. Just wanted to teach him a lesson, and we're just like, right, do you know what? You didn't drive over here. I can't be asked to give you a lift home. It's not my fault your dog's being sick. Jog on. Try not to get eaten by cryptids. I think that's probably more so what happened. But something being 8 foot tall, being behind you, is a pretty much no thank you moment, isn't it? And let's go on to the next story. This one is from Welsh Guy 78. This must be within the UK. How lovely. And they've written my encounter with the Goatman. During 1999, I worked briefly as a vacuum cleaner salesman. Yes, the job was as terrible as it sounds, which required very late nights, as I was often at customers' homes until 9 p.m, before having to go back to the head office to check out, then drive back home, often not arriving home until 12 to 1 a.m. So not only is his job absolutely awful, but it's really bad hours too. I mean, I hope he's got a new one. I hope he's got a new job now. I was working late this one particular night and was on the home stretch around 10 minutes from home when my old crappy cheap Ford Fiesta started to overheat. I knew the car wouldn't make it home and had no choice other than to pull into a lay-by on top of a big, dark, deserted mountain next to my hometown. My hometown is literally the last town. Before that, there's just mountains and forests for countless miles. As I pulled into the mountain parking area with steam pouring from my engine, this is 100% true, by the way, a white humanoid figure, obviously surprised that a car was pulling into a deserted parking space in the middle of the night, ran directly in front of my headlights as it sprinted from the edge of the clear side of the parking area and into the forest on the other side. It had no clothes on, no features, no genitals, and no hair, etc. It was just a white figure with 2 arms and 2 legs that appeared almost luminous and reflective in my lights. To say I shit myself is a bit of an understatement. My eyes popped out of my sockets when it ran out in front. But then I realised that I was stuck in a dead car in a deserted mountain lay-by in the middle of the night with no mobile phone signal, as this was back in the days when mobile phones were just starting to become popular, but large chunks of the countryside were missing from network coverage. I had no choice but to sit there for around an hour until my car had cooled down, as it gave up the ghost pretty much the second I pulled in. So I sat in my car alone, staring directly into the forest where the thing I had saw had run. No weapon, no way to contact anyone to let them know where I was, and no passing traffic to possibly flag down. During my wait in the car, I obviously started to wonder what I had seen. I knew for a fact that I had actually seen something, and it was not a trick of the light. That much was clear. I discounted sheep, horses, foxes, or any other animal that populated the Welsh mountains, as I was certain it was a 2-legged humanoid creature shape with roughly a human head, body, arms, and leg proportions. The obvious answer would have been that it was a very strange man who, for some reason, was wearing a white and full body stocking. Think Charlie's Green Man from It's Always Sunny. Just side note, I've never seen that, but I've heard it's hilarious, so you might get that reference. I don't. But since we were miles away from the nearest home and I was the only car, it's unlikely that someone would have spent hours walking through thick forest just to hang out in a parking area in the middle of the forest wearing a unitard. Since I could rule out possible animals or humans, I had to consider the alternative, which isn't a nice thing to do and think about when you're stuck in a broken down car with this creature very possibly still outside. I didn't think it was aliens as it was too tall compared to the classic look. But any type of apparition or ghost doesn't tend to run away from people when surprised. I'm not sure if it was some kind of Welsh version of a Wendigo, but if I had to categorize the encounter, this would be my number one choice. There was always talk of satanic rituals and witch practicing in the forest when I was a kid, and also illegal bare knuckle fights where people had been killed and buried there to cover up the crime. But I didn't think much of it at the time and always wrote it off to superstition and rumour. But now I'm not so sure. Eventually, my car cooled down enough for me to limp it back home. No one believed me when I told them what I saw. I'm adamant that it was a sheep. But to this day, I swear that the creature I encountered was something different. I've been in the forest many times since, camping, biking, and hiking, and I have never seen anything like that again. But wherever I go, I am always aware of the possible presence of the Goatman. Ooh, eerie. It's scary enough now with all of the phone coverage that we actually have being stuck in that moment. Actually, probably one of my worst fears is breaking down by myself in the night down a country road. And that is mainly because of Darren, who sent us a story where this peg-legged man was walking towards him while he was trying to change his tyre down a country road near Tewkesbury. Absolutely bloody terrifying stuff. And it's just, I can't even comprehend seeing that thing run in front of your headlights whilst you're on your own at 1 o'clock in the morning and you can't start your car. It's a thing of horrors. It's a nightmare. Of all the Reddit stories, I actually believe this person because I don't feel like their story is exaggerated, you know? Let's jump on to the next one. Just so you lot know, the last story that I'm going to read you is probably one of the freakiest stories I've read in a very long time. Is it true? I don't know. It could be creepypasta, you know? I'm going to put it in there anyway because I'd like to think that some creepypasta stories are actually real, but people are just like trying to put them under the guise of not being real so that they can actually tell people their story without looking crazy, you know? Yeah, just a little plot twist going on there. This next story is from someone called XSUTCAC. I don't know how to say that. And it's just called Goatman. And they put, this happened 2 Fridays before New Year's Eve. I was at home with my friend Samantha a few hours after school ended when my dad called to let me know that he wasn't going to come home that night. There was going to be a really shitty storm and he said he'd rather stay at a friend's house with a few co-workers than drive 2 hours back home. And she's put, my dad is a construction worker. He works at different locations for every new project, and this one was far away. My mum came home not too long after, drenched in rain. She talked to Samantha for a bit, telling us that she'd be upstairs taking a shower and filling out some paperwork from the office. This next bit cracked me up. Shit was thrown into the air at around 8 p.m. when Samantha and I heard knocking on the door. It was already weird because who the fuck is even out in this weather? It was pouring with rain and the streets looked like an actual stream of piss. What amazing descriptions. I went down to the door dragging Samantha with me, only to be greeted by nothing. We were looking out the door for under 5 seconds when we heard the knock again. Now this is when the shit was thrown into the air, reached the fan and hit the fan. Sam and I instantly pissed ourselves when we realised someone was knocking on my back door being the door leading to the backyard. We quietly went up the stairs to my mum's room, finding her asleep, not even changed out of her work clothes. I woke her up immediately and told her someone was in our backyard. This obviously caused alarm, and seeing her so freaked out me and Samantha as well. This might not sound scary to you, but being home without my dad in this house was scary enough on its own. Mum went down to the kitchen with us trailing not even 2 foot behind her, and she pulled out her rolling pin. Before we could reach the door, the knocking stopped. Mum reached over and pulled the curtain back. All Samantha and my mum saw was pitch black, but I swear I saw someone standing a few feet away from the door. Maybe it was because I was the only one of us facing its direction, but it was tall as fuck, like 7 foot, maybe over. That's all I could tell you because that's all I saw of it. It was probably just one of those tree branches. It's really windy out, Mum suggested. I could tell Samantha wasn't too sure, and I knew damn well it wasn't a tree branch. But why freak the rest of them out? I know I should have told them so we could have left, but I kept it quiet for their sake. About an hour later, Mum decided to go to the department store down the street to pick up some dinner and left both of us at home. It was only 5 minutes later when we heard the knocking again. I quickly felt uneasy. It could be your mum, Samantha said. I went down to the door and asked who it was. The following 5 seconds of silence were the longest 5 seconds of my life. It's me, it's Mum. But at the same time, I felt like it wasn't. Looking back now, I realised her voice sounded like it was lacking all human characteristics. It wasn't playful, nor was it frustrated at how long we were keeping her in the rain for. It sounded like she didn't even know what emotions were. I opened the door without unlocking the chain and was greeted by Mum. Samantha and I let her in, and she came in without any bags. She sat down on the couch for a few minutes, looking around. She was so fucked up. She seemed like her actions weren't flowing smoothly. Mum, are you okay? You don't seem right. Her eyes locked at me before the rest of her face turned. It was just a long walk, cold, outside, raining. She kept listing words and phrases that made little sense. I was getting more uneasy by the second, but I think Samantha was just glad we weren't home alone anymore. The scariest thing that happened that night happened during one of Mum's ramblings. Samantha had asked her what we were having for dinner, and she started listing more foods that we didn't even have. Halfway through her run, I received a text from Mum. Do you guys want lasagna? Ask Samantha what she wants. Take your time deciding. It's so warm in here. My heart instantly dropped. Mum was right in front of me, talking about fish fingers. Samantha and whatever was pretending to be Mum directed their attention at me. I was panting, and according to Samantha, all of the colour had drained from my face. Who is it? Mum asked. Wrong number, I quickly flashed a smile. You look tired, Mum. Do you want to go to bed? Samantha and I will make dinner. I think I just need a bath. We nodded, and she stood up and made her way to the stairs. She was at the bottom of the stairs when I pulled out my phone to take a photo. I looked down at it for 1 second to cancel the 20% remaining notification, but when I looked back up, Mum was already at the top step. I can't stress this enough. The time in which I looked at my phone and looked back up was impossible for someone to walk up 13 steps. I ran back to Samantha and waited until we both heard the water in the bathroom running. Samantha, my mum texted me. What? When that thing was talking to us, my mum texted me. She started freaking out and thinking of reasons. Maybe she meant to send the text earlier, but it's only delivered now. It seemed valid. Apple always gets glitchy like that, but we decided to call her anyway just to make sure. Just as the phone started ringing, someone knocked on the door. We went to see who it was. Samantha was about to open it, but I put my hand in front of her. I was so terrified at this point that I was in tears. Samantha stared at me in confusion. Hey, Mum, I said into the phone. I was shaking, and as soon as Samantha heard me say that, she looked like she was about to throw up. Open the door, it's freezing outside. I sighed in relief and threw the door open. Mum was standing there with a phone pressed to her ear and her shopping bags around her feet. We quickly explained what had happened, and it took my mum 2 minutes of hearing the story to climb up the stairs and walk into the bathroom. She literally kicked the door open and found the tub almost filled to the rim. The window was also open, and the fly screen was torn. The rest of the night consisted of us trying to get over what had happened. We ended up sleeping together in my mum's room, and my dad came home early the next morning. I only started researching a few days ago and found out it was, in fact, the Goatman. Oh, mate. My eyes twitched in reading that. That's the next level, isn't it? Usually I would say this sounds like a mimic because it's represented her mum. It sounds like her mum, even though it hasn't quite got the language down. It can't speak English properly. It's got no cadence or anything like that. No human emotion. We're not safe from any of them, are we? We've got the Goatman, we've got mimics, we've got Wendigos, SWs. We've got loads of this shit going on, and they seem to be working together just to scare the crap out of us. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know what its main mission was. Is it that it knew that it was doing a very bad job misleading? It's almost like all of these unusual paranormal entity go to a paranormal entity school. And it's like for their homework, they're given an assignment. And it's just, all right, you go to this house with these two young girls there. Your assignment is to be their mum, be as human as you can be, learn on the job, see if you can fool them. If you can't fool them, you're coming back here, you're in detention, we're slapping your knuckles with a ruler, and you've got to do 100 press ups. So they're trying their best, right, when they're going in this house. The hardest part is probably to be invited in. So this entity has got this down at this point. Now, I hope that it's gone back and it's actually done some revision on how to have some kind of flow within the English language, how to talk properly. I don't think it has to do much to basically sound kind of human, you know? There are a lot of people in this world who are human who don't even sound human themselves. This one on this occasion definitely got an E minor. I don't even think they mark it like that anymore, but they failed this test badly, didn't they? I'm rambling, talking absolute crap. So the next one, this story is from someone called Native American, and they say, this happened a long time ago and was one of the first encounters I had. I was 9 years old, staying with my grandma on a reservation. I'm Native American. And I was only supposed to be there for a day, but it started to storm badly, lasting nearly 4 days. To this day, it's one of the worst storms I've had. The power was out for maybe 3 days or so, with no lights, no stove, nothing. The layout of my grandma's house is pretty important. I don't think you would even call it a house. It was like a little trailer house, the kind you see in Trailer Park Boys. It must have been the third night because the day after we ate boiled eggs. I don't know why that's important, but it must be. My cousin, my aunt, and I were all sleeping in the living room, and from where I was sleeping, you could see the kitchen window, which was pretty small, 2x4. I was woken up by the sound of something talking in a strange voice. At the time, I couldn't think of what it reminded me of, but now after thinking for years, it sounded like a goat trying to speak English. Let's just imagine for a moment what that sounds like. That's pretty funny. I mean, it's not funny if you're little, 9 years old. That would scare the crap out of me too. I still don't know what it was trying to say, but I heard, "Hey boys, hey." I guess that would sound more like, "Hey boys, hey." I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to be serious now. I got chills typing that. At first, I thought it was my cousin being annoying, but then I noticed there was a big figure standing outside of the kitchen window that had its fists against the glass. And then I noticed it was banging on the window, not hard enough to make a ton of noise though. I saw the outline of the horns similar to big horned goats, fur covering its entire body from what I could see, and then fucking lightning flash and I saw its face. Very hard to describe, but it looked like what you would imagine a goatman to look like, maybe a bit more on the goat side. It looked old and rough. Its fur was mostly grey with some brown. The window that it was at was 6 feet above the ground or more. I don't remember because the trailer burned down a few years back, so I guess it was redone. So I would say it could be around 7 to 7.5 feet tall. Throughout the night, it stayed in place, but the banging turned into scratching, and the attempts to speak turned into growls and shouting. Lightning flashed a few times more, and every time I could see the anger on its face growing more and more. I eventually woke up my cousin crying. She came and laid with me until I fell asleep. I had a hard time falling asleep because every time I closed my eyes, I would see eyes looking back at me. And when I eventually did sleep, I had a nightmare involving the Goatman. In my dream, I watched him walk over to the neighbours and brutally murder them and come back with a decapitated head, swinging it around in my face. It was taunting me. Why? I still don't know. What's weird is that my cousin said that she couldn't see it, but she could hear it, the growling, scratching, etc. We talk about it often. And I remember at one point moving to another room to look outside of the window and seeing its full body, which was not like a minotaur, but a centaur. It noticed me, and that's when I ran back into the living room. This person's done an edit and they've said, I forgot to mention that in the morning, we checked outside for evidence and we found huge hoof prints going from window to window and scratch marks on the window. The prints were probably the size of 2 open hands. It's like that big. That's pretty sketchy. The funniest part of that story for me was to mention the eggs. I'm not really sure why the eggs were mentioned. Maybe it's because they could actually see them in the kitchen from where they were sleeping. And it's like a real prominent thing that stuck out in their mind. Oh, it must have happened the night after because we had eggs and there was a pan They were trying to basically figure out in their head when this has happened, hadn't they? But really funny detail there because it didn't marry up with anything else. Cracked me up. Loved it. This just reminds me of me trying to tell a story. I tell you bits that you don't actually understand because you weren't there to visually see it. You're not in my memory. You can't see what I'm trying to describe to you. And I'll just end up going around the houses, telling you everything, every detail that you didn't really need to know, and then forgetting myself why I was even telling you the story in the first place. So this person clearly tells stories like I do. I would definitely tell you about the eggs too. So no mocking, no shade, you know? This next story is from someone called Nightmare Narrative, and it's just titled The Goatman. And they say, my friends and I were camping in Maryland near a river. We set up a whole weekend where we would go tubing, which meant we would get in these giant inflatable tires and float down the river. That sounds very fun. Not going to lie, it sounds very fun. We got there on Friday to go tubing on Saturday and leave on Sunday. It was me, my girlfriend, her best friend, and her boyfriend. The four of us were meant to have a great weekend together. Instead, it turned into a nightmare that will keep me away from the outdoors for good. I'm pretty sure I have had an encounter with the Goatman. We arrived on Friday with no fuss. We set up our tents at the designated campground and made dinner. There were no other campers around us since school had started up again, so we had the area to ourselves. We drank all night. The other three drank more than me because I'm not a fan of the hard stuff, just a few beers. It was late at night, probably around midnight, when I had to pee, so I left the campsite and walked down the path a little into the woods. When I found a good spot, I unzipped my pants and began to relieve myself when I looked ahead, and faintly in the moonlight, I could see a figure moving between the trees. The moon was about half full, so there wasn't much light to make out the features. The leaves and sticks crunched underneath it. Just as I was finishing up, this thing started to make this weird noise. It sounded like a muffled goat sound, but not quite right. Like a person was imitating a goat. It kept walking around like it was looking for something, but whatever, it scared the hell out of me, so I ran back to the campsite and acted like it didn't happen. My girlfriend and friends were so drunk I don't know how they would have reacted. The next morning, I woke up before everyone else, so I made breakfast. At around noon, we drove up the river about 3 miles using the camp's van service that would drop us off, and we would tube down the river back to our campsite. I had pretty much forgotten about the weird encounter from the previous night until I had a weird feeling of being watched while floating down the river. It was all woods on both sides of the river, so I couldn't really confirm my feeling, but it ruined my whole experience while going down the river. It creeped me the hell out. My friends started to feel it too when I told them. The other boyfriend claims he saw someone on the riverbank, but no one else saw it. Once we got back to the camp, I told them what I saw on the Friday night, and it really creeped them out. That's when the boyfriend said the thing that he saw kind of looked like a weirdly shaped man from a distance. We were all scared and decided that we'd leave first thing in the morning for checkout when the park rangers returned. After a while, we began drinking again and pretty much forgot about our fears, and for a moment, we had fun again. But it wasn't until later that night that my fear returned. We were all pretty drunk at this point, and we were doing that thing you do when you're drunk, when you kind of have those heart-to-hearts with each other and talk about life. That kind of conversation, you know? We started hearing these noises again. It started off in the distance at first, and then it got closer and closer to our campsite. We heard noises all around us, just twigs breaking, scratching on trees, and more of those goat noises mixed with a man growling. None of us had a weapon, so we were pretty scared and huddled close to each other. The scariest part was that the bugs stopped making noises. Eventually, we all drank some more and fell asleep around the campfire. I woke up in the middle of the night, probably because I sensed something was wrong. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like sleep paralysis or something where I couldn't move and couldn't speak. I opened my eyes and I saw this terrifying thing in between all of us. It had the body of a skinny man with a distorted face and long, unnatural arms. I saw that it was pacing back and forth between us. It would stop, look at my girlfriend, and arch its back and act like it was chuckling. It would keep twitching its back and sniffing the air around everyone. The goatman finally came over to me and looked me in the eyes. It had these dark, pitted eyes, and its mouth was wet with drool. It got close to me and opened its mouth, making that noise into my face. The noise must have woken up the boyfriend, and he started screaming, which scared the creature off, and it ran into the woods on all fours. I was finally able to move and I crawled over to my girlfriend and held her for the rest of the night. First thing in the morning, we packed our stuff and checked out in the main lodge. We will never go back to those woods in Maryland again. There is something living out there, guys. I'm telling you this story because I don't want anything to happen to you. This is another one that freaks me out because it feels like this person isn't really exaggerating what they're saying. It just feels like they're telling the story of what happened, which makes me believe it more. And I just don't want that to be true, you know? I think what I'll do is I'll stick to the lazy rivers in these like splashdown or somewhere you can go to enjoy a lazy river without being in an actual river, for example, somewhere in Maryland, where there is some kind of half goat man who wants to sniff you. Why is he sniffing them? Why is he sniffing them all? Go sniff someone else. Go sniff a tree. I just don't understand why he's there giving them a sniff. Maybe with these entities, I really believe that they feed off of our energy. And I believe that the more trauma you've had, which I think I've told you guys before, the more they're able to infiltrate you and use your energy for their own food. Because I believe they feed off fear. I believe they feed off sadness, of grief. And the more riddled you are with these things, the more they're like, yeah, it's you I'm going to attach to because you're going to give me exactly what I need. You've got negative thoughts, you've got negative energy. Yeah, love it. It's like a moth when it floats onto a light bulb, only it's not as harmless, the moth. These things will change your whole life and your whole personality, so you don't want to mess with them. But I wonder if it was like, right, he's awake, I'll paralyze him, then I can go sniff his girlfriend. And maybe there was some kind of like trauma around her that it liked the smell of. I don't know why it would run off when that guy screamed, though, because this thing surely in that moment holds a lot more power than them. If he can paralyze one of them, why didn't he just be like, right, you shut up too, I'll paralyze you too, and I'm going to sniff your girlfriend as well. Now, this next story is the one that I'm not sure. I think it's creepypasta. If you don't know what creepypasta is, it's basically people who tell stories within the traditional horror theme, but they're not real, they're fiction. But we don't know. We don't know. And I just thought, I read this in its entirety and it kept me absolutely hooked. It took me a while to read it. And I thought, even if it's not real, let's bloody enjoy it together because it is a great story. And for all we know, it could be. Again, it's not one of these like really massively exaggerated stories. It just seems to be quite a flowing tale that will scare the hell out of you. So this story is literally just titled Goatman. And they say, I was 16 and had family down in Alabama. They were all farmers and had a huge amount of land in Huntsville. My uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers they put out in the woods for hunting and camping. While I was down south, my cousin suggests that we go out camping for a few days. We get to the camp and it's obvious something is weird. The air has a strange electric smell, like right before a storm. We don't think much of it and unpack and go down to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden, some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and says hello. He asks what we're doing this far back into the woods, and I tell him about my uncle. He tells us we need to be really careful out here and stick together because there are big animals in the woods. His son, who is my age, asks if he can hang out with us, and his dad says okay. We end up playing football and dicking around. There's me, the white kid Tanner, 5 of my cousins and 4 of their friends, 5 girls and 6 boys. We were all camping around 15 to 17 years old, and we ended up dicking the day away and going back to camp and getting set up for the campfire, even though we had trailers and kitchenettes. Tanner said he wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come camping with us. His family's property sits up against my uncle's. My cousin Rooster says he's going to go with him since it's getting pretty dark. One of the girls says she's going to tag along as well. At this point, it's around 7 p.m. and it's starting to get pretty dark. They take flashlights and head off onto the trails towards Tan's property. The rest of us chill and make s'mores and drink and hit on the girls. About 30 to 40 minutes later, there's that smell of ozone again. You could smell it over the smell of the fire we had going. It had a pretty nasty copper smell, like the smell you get after you've had a nosebleed. It wasn't exactly like dry blood, but it was something that strong, that metallic back of your throat smell. We immediately think it's some kind of electrical malfunction or someone left the hot plate on or some shit. We search the trailers and there's nothing on, but we can still smell it. All of a sudden, we hear people booking it down the path towards us. Rooster, Tan, and the girl all came running into the clearing out of breath. They didn't break a stride, they all just ran into the trailer next to where the fire is. We all noped the fuck out of there and got into the trailers ourselves. They end up calming down a bit, but even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out. Meanwhile, the fire is getting lower and lower, so my cousin says fuck it, and we all go outside and start up the generator. Tanner says fuck no and locks the door. I'm really sorry about this, guys. There's a lot of swearing in this story. I probably should have pre-warned you. Ain't nobody else going outside. He's been crying too, and his eyes are bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are dirty as shit. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house and his father said it was okay for him to stay out camping. He just needed to make sure that they were careful on their way back, and maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before, and then one of their pigs had turned up ripped in half and eaten. They assumed it was just some big cats or coyotes, even though they don't usually fuck with live animals. He had gone upstairs and packed his stuff and told his dad that they would be okay without the rifles because coyotes avoid people. So they started to walk back towards where we were camping. Rooster finally stops crying and shaking. The girl had stopped too, but she was just staring out of the window like with this dumb look on her face. He says that they gotten halfway into the woods towards the camp when they started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure what the fuck it was. The girl said she heard something in the bushes right off the trail, and they all beamed their flashlights over there. There was something standing back in the woods in the little hollow. Rooster said that he had shouted at him and told him that he was scaring the fuck out of them and that he was a dick. He said that that's when he realised that the guy was facing away from them. So they keep walking and they start to smell this nasty coppery ozone smell. And they say they look off into the forest on the opposite side and it's a dude standing in the forest backwards, but this time he's slightly closer on the path. So now they start power walking and Tan keeps saying that he should have taken the fucking rifle. As they're telling the story, the smell is still super strong, even stronger inside the trailer. They say that as they started walking faster, that a kind of low gibbering had started coming from both sides of the woods. They started booking it back to the trailer. The girl said that she flashed her light out into the woods to the side of the trail and had seen something jerking around through the forest, and the gibbering got louder and louder. When they could see the light from the campfire, something had come out of the woods and about 40 yards behind them onto the trail, so they just flat out run as fast as they could to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods, and at this point we're assuming it's some rednecks or some shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin Junior starts going on about how he went to school with a Native American kid that was telling him about a Goatman or some shit. We promptly tell him to shut the fuck up because the last thing we need is some spooky story at this point. But he keeps going on and on about it and how it's the fucking Goatman and how we're in the woods and blah, blah, blah. Now, at the time, I had never heard of the Goatman or any of that. But a couple of years ago, the year before I graduated from college, I had a roommate and I ended up asking him about it. To sum it up, it's basically a man with a head of a goat and he can shapeshift and he gets among groups of people to terrorize them. It's also supposed to be some kind of Wendigo, but it's bad mojo to even talk about it, and even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know this back when I was 16. So my cousin's going, the Goatman is going to get in and he's going to fucking get us. The girls are all terrified and my cousins and I are fucking trying to figure out if it's just some hillbillies or some animals. All of a sudden, that smell just goes away. Like, to this day, I haven't experienced anything like it. Usually smells just fade away or become faint, but this was literally there 1 second and just gone in the next. After an hour, making it around 9 or 10, we've stopped shitting bricks enough to go outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it was just some assholes trying to fuck with us, so we don't go back home. We think that if we do, they'll just come chase us through the woods or something. Nothing else weird happened that night, and we stayed another night. For the main part of the night, nothing happens. At about 1 a.m. in the morning, we're outside getting drunk and telling ghost stories. As someone finishes a spooky story, I don't remember what it was about. The smell comes back. And it is so strong that one of the girls literally starts vomiting. I stand up and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. And I say we should go inside. This isn't right. We should have just fucking left. We all go back inside and we're standing around and my cousin keeps going on about how it's the Goatman. My cousin Rooster tries to shut him up. All the while, I'm just feeling like something is wrong and can't figure out what it is. We end up sitting in there for a while, and the smell is just as strong. We're terrified and all huddled in this camper. We end up cooking brats for everyone. That's sausages, by the way. And we have a total of 3 packs. I grill them up on the stove and give everybody a hot dog. I get mine. After a while, one of my cousins gets up and goes over to the stove to get one. He starts grumbling about how the fuck do I get two and everyone else only gets one. I look at him like he's stupid. I tell him that everybody only got one because there's only 12 brats. If he wants more, he should open up a new pack and cook some up. That's when the girl who had been with Rooster and Tan starts screaming, "Oh, Jesus! Oh, Lord, get out!" She's crying and shivering, and it dawns on my cousin who is standing up just what the fuck was wrong. Me and him both glance around the room, and then I feel my heart sink. I run out of the cabin and the girl runs out with us. The trailer door bangs against the side of the trailer as everybody books it out of there. One of my cousin's friends asks what the hell is wrong. I start counting us, and there are only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified. There have been 12 people in the trailer, being that everybody didn't really know each other very well. Nobody had ever really noticed the whole time that there was an extra person. Then I realised earlier that I had kind of noticed something was off. You know how you are just dicking around, having a good time, and you didn't sweat the small stuff? You don't always keep track of certain stuff, but now I am dead sure that someone else had been in the trailer with us and that they had been there for at least a day eating with us. What makes it worse is I couldn't figure out which one because I don't think anyone ever actually interacted with the other person thing. The girl keeps praying to Jesus and we're all sitting outside. Eventually we get a big ass stick and go back outside the trailer and nobody's there. We count again and there's 11 people. Everyone gets in the trailer and we lock the door. We explain what happened and the girl says that she realised it too. And when she was about to say something, the person sitting next to her grabbed her leg hard and leaned over and said something she couldn't understand. So we were pretty much scared to fuck and we huddled together. I fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up and half the people are asleep and the other half are packing our shit up. We want to walk back home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up. Some of the people think that we're just fucking around and still want to stay in the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of the woods. The girl's name is Kira, the one that the Goatman touched. Anyway, I asked her if she thinks it was something bad and she said she just wants to go home and doesn't want to stay out in the woods for another night. So we decided to split people up. And the 4 that want to go can. And that I have to stay because I have the keys to the trailers and since it's my uncle's, I have to lock up. I'm super pissed at this point because I feel like people aren't taking this shit seriously and I definitely don't want to be out in the woods for another night. So I spend the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people, 4 guys and 4 girls, that we need to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves with the other group to go and get the rifle and he says he's going to be back. So there are just 7 of us left at this point and it's about 4 o'clock. At around 5 p.m, he hasn't made it back yet and we're getting extremely antsy. And the only reason I stopped begging them to go back was because he was going to get a gun. At around 5:30 p.m. or so, my cousin that did stay says that Kira girl is outside. We all looked outside and sure enough, she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, she was so fucking scared. Why the hell did she come back? And then I get this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind the whole time the coppery smell has been gone, but now I realise I can smell just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them and they all laugh at me and ask if I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like, I'm not bullshitting you right now. I asked them why the fuck would I play like that? So one of the girls goes outside to get Kira. She gets halfway to her and stops cold. Kira starts heaving. I don't know how to describe it, convulsing. Sort of like if someone with their back turned was laughing without actually making any sound. And it was the fact that I thought this that made me realise there was not a sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. This was late September, so you could usually hear big ass geese honking, all kinds of birds, squirrels chattering, etc. So I step out of the door and tell her to come back in the fucking trailer right goddamn now. She backs up a little towards the trailer and we lock the door and pull all of the shades down except for one. We put someone in a chair to keep an eye on her. She stands there for about 20 minutes or so. Then the guy turns to say that she's still here. Then there's a huge bang on the door. We all jump up and scramble around the living room trailer. The banging is so loud. So now my cousin is holding one of the girls, and the other two are kind of giggling with nervous laughter. Me and the other two guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan. He's screaming, "Let me the fuck in, stop fucking playing." So we go over to the door and I open it and he stumbles in with a rifle. There's nobody else outside. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird had happened in the forest, but he had seen the girl who he said wasn't Kira, just standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned towards him with the slack jaw look and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't until he was almost halfway to the trailer that he realized she was getting closer to him. She had started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been turning and inching closer. He said he'd just ran the rest of the way to the trailer thinking it would open. When he got to the door, it was locked, and he turned around and it was about half a distance to the door. He looked around the room and then gets super pale. He pulls me to one side and whispers in my ear, "You know there are only 6 of you in here, right?" I get that feeling where your stomach drops into your nuts. It had been back inside the trailer while we were sorting out who was going where. It was messing with us. We look out the window and there is nobody there. So we recount everyone. And then basically I go over and ask everyone how many people there were here earlier. Everybody says 8. I ask how many people are now. Everyone counts and then realizes there are now only 7 people in the cabin. Tan had brought back a couple of boxes of ammo and his rifle. He had told his dad there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think his dad would believe him if he said it was the Goatman. He says that his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours and that in the morning we can all go back to his place and his cousin will drive us home. Now I'm terrified, but at least I feel a bit better knowing that we can just shoot the hell out of whatever it is if it comes back. My cousin gets into a huge argument with one of the girls because she accuses us of trying to prank them. My cousin keeps telling her that we're not those types of people. She asks, how do we know the girl by the fire wasn't Tanner in a wig? Or if it really is the Goatman, how do we know that this is the real Tanner and that the Goatman didn't just kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun? Tanner and I make it clear that we could seriously be in danger because at the very least, someone is sneaking themselves into our fucking trailer without us knowing and mingling with us. Goatman or not, we weren't safe. One of the girls starts crying and saying that she wants to leave right now. We try telling her that that's a no-go because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down and it's getting a little cloudy out. We eat something and turn on the radio station, but we can't really get a decent channel out there, so we turn it off about the same time that Tan's cousin shows up. The sun is just barely over the horizon and he has one of those heavy-duty lantern flashlights and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer and we whisper to Tan, asking if he's sure that that's his cousin, and he says yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp. Then he walks in and kind of glances at us and looks a little confused. He says, "Where's your other little buddy at? I figured she would meet me up at the trailer. Is she a little slow or something?" He also asked what we'd been cooking because it smells like bloody hot pans all the way up the trail. We all noped and asked him what the fuck he was talking about. He had come down the same trail that Tan had been using and said he came upon one of you guys' buddies standing in the middle of the trail looking at him slack-jawed. He asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was look at him and then smiled. He said he kept walking, but she couldn't seem to keep up with him and kept falling behind. He asked if she was hurt, but she just stared at him. He kept walking and had turned around a bend in the trail, and when he turned back to check to see if she was still keeping up, the trail was empty. He assumed that she just took a shortcut back to the trailer. We tell him the whole story of what's been going on, and he nopes the fuck out now. I expected him to say we were full of shit. I think he was 19 or so. He just listened and then sat down on the couch in the living room. He said that when she kept lagging behind him, it weirded him the fuck out, but no matter how slow he walked, she always tagged behind him. He also said that he smelled this nasty smell that got stronger as he got closer to the camp. Eventually, it got really strong, and he heard her say something in a low, quiet voice. He turned to ask her what she said, and she'd caught right up with him. He went to reach out for her and grabbed her shoulder, but he said he must have misjudged the distance because she was off to the side of where he'd put his hand. The whole time, she was just staring right at him. At this point, we know this shit's real, unless Tan is playing a joke, but you can tell he's just pissing his pants, so we know he's not. They load up their rifles, and we eat some more. We all sit around till about 11 p.m. To this day, whenever I think about this, I pray to God that it was just some huge prank that my cousins played on me and never told me the truth. At around 11, the smell of copper turns into a really nasty blood smell, like cooking blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin Reese get up and grab their rifles. There's like a half knocking, clawing at the door, and I shit you not, there's this voice, and it sounded like when you see those YouTube videos of cats and dogs whose owners teach them how to talk. It says in this halting, weirdly toned voice, "Let me the fuck in. Stop fucking playing." It made my nuts creep up against my body. One of the girls started crying. It was so obviously not a person talking. It didn't have the right cadence. And that's some shit that I never realized until that moment. All people have a certain cadence when they talk, no matter what language. This shit didn't have any. YouTube those cats. That's what it sounded like outside the door. Now I'm in full on terror mode. We keep yelling outside, "Who is it? Stop fucking around." And it just keeps saying, "Let me in," for almost 15 minutes. Then the smell goes away for a while, and for the next hour or so, you can hear someone creeping around in the woods and shit. Every couple of minutes, it comes back to the door and it says something. Finally, the smell totally fades away when it's around 2 in the morning. Reese says, "Fuck this," and opens the door and walks outside with his rifle. He fires a shot into the air and says something like, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more rounds in front of the woods near the river across from the trailer. It sounds like something is slowly gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming, and it sounds almost like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. Like, I've seriously never heard anything like it, and you could hear the brush over that way start to shake. Reese fires over into the tree line and then starts backing into the trailer. We lock the door and can still hear it screaming. Reese says something came out of the bushes, really low to the ground, crawling towards the trailer, and he shot at it. That's pretty much how the rest of the night went. It was screaming for the next 2 hours, and we could hear shit moving out into the tree line. It never came back to the trailer until everyone had fallen asleep. Tan had been sitting in the chair watching the door with his rifle, and nobody else heard or saw this. He told me 2 days later, after the whole thing was over. He said he had been nodding off after the screaming had stopped. He was almost asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and then lay down in the middle of the floor to go to sleep. He just assumed it was one of us. Then he said he kind of realized something was wrong, and while pretending to sleep, he counted us. There were 9 people in the trailer. He didn't want to try and shoot the fucking thing in the cabin and have it kill us all then and there, or have Reese wake up and start shooting everything in sight. So he just stayed awake all night pretending to sleep. He said sometimes it would stand up and kind of do this weird jittering thing or heave like it was laughing. Then it would just lay back down. So this story closes pretty weak because from my perspective, nothing else happened. We woke up and I noticed Tam was a little jittery and was avoiding looking at us all. But we ate some breakfast, packed up and started walking to his house. He stayed last in the cabin and said he'd lock up and bring my uncle's keys. He said to just start walking and he'd catch up. We got a little bit up the path when he came running up, and we just jogged back to his house, and his cousin took us home. There was a window open in the bathroom when Tan had gone back up to lock up, and he said we'd just been too stupid to lock the window. It didn't even have a screen on it. The window was up when he went in there. I'm guessing it had been doing that all along. It waited for us all to fall asleep or slip up, and then it would get among us. Tan told me it walked with us all the way back up to his fucking house. Then it lagged to the back of the group, looked him dead in the eyes, and walked into the woods. That is really weird, isn't it? What a long, crazy story that is. Oh, I'm really sorry about all the swearing, by the way. I didn't actually realize how much he swears. I just kind of took a load of swear words out as I was reading that. Wow. I don't really know what to make of that. Obviously, that is meant to be creepypasta. It's not meant to be 100% real, but anything online these days, I don't know. There's a lot of people who are kind of ashamed from the stories that they actually have, and they don't want people to think they're nuts. So they kind of just share these things under the guise of them maybe being fake. But I can't also say that's like 100% true, but I just kind of get the impression that there are a lot of people that message me, even with their ghost stories, are just like, "Oh, can you keep me anonymous?" Or "I don't really know. I don't want people to think I'm crazy, but this did happen to me." So, if you're a bit of a writer and you want to put it into a story, fair play. That to me was a little bit too far, that story. I don't know what to make of it. Can you imagine being out there in the forest? you don't really know everyone. It's just really like a hangout as young people there. You know, what it's like when you're a kid, you just have all these people around you and you don't know who all of them are. I think it's a bit different in the UK. We tend to just go home and sleep in our own beds. But I would imagine that if you do have farms and stuff as a kid and you do have the opportunity, of course, you probably would have camped and it would have been really fun. I definitely would have done that when I was younger. But there being someone else amongst you that you don't actually know, and that poor girl Kira, that thing grabbing her leg and saying something in a different language and then pretending to be her. I wonder if they ever told her and if she absolutely shat herself. Because it grabbed her leg, I wonder if it was able to kind of like then resemble her. It's funny, isn't it, when you hear all these shape-shifting stories, you're like, well, what is it that they actually like screen to be able to like pick up your mannerisms, your body, like to be able to look exactly like you? Like what actually enables them to be able to do that? It's like a chameleon when they change colors. It must be something built within them that they can just their whole frequency and body just scans you and just like knows you 100%. The only thing they need to get down, like I said to you before, is their English language of being able to talk like a human and not like a robot. I think that's a big giveaway. And if they can work on that, it will be like AI. They'll be tricking us in no time. You know, I don't condone it, but if they did it, a lot of us wouldn't know that we've got some kind of low vibrational demonic entity in our house. And they would technically have more power over us, wouldn't they? Let's maybe not let them listen to this podcast because then they'll know. Now, listen, that's all I have time for. It's been a very long episode tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully my voice isn't doing your head in now. My voice box is about to cave. I think I'm going to have a very lovely bottle of cold water because it was a very hot day and I'm not having a jacket potato today. I think I'm going to have I definitely need some carbs. If you see me looking this way, by the way, I'm just looking out the window into the garden. I think people just wonder like what I'm looking at, but I'm just like fixated. I'm like, just looking at the lovely flowers in the garden. But I'm probably going to have something carby. I do have burgers, but they are veggie burgers. But the stuff that I put with them just takes them to a next level. I might have a lovely, juicy, fat cheeseburger with some lovely homemade fries and mayo and barbecue. Oh, God. I've got to make it. I'm salivating already. And I just have to say one thing, actually. I have ordered, I don't know if you've seen on my Instagram, if you follow me, but I basically asked everyone to name this succulent plant that I got a little while ago. And everyone was like Audrey 2. And Audrey 2 is out of Little Shop of Horrors. It's that big, scary plant from years ago, if you're old enough to remember that. I just about remember it. I wasn't old. I wasn't like an older kid watching it. I was quite young, but my sister loved that film. And in honor of my succulent, which I actually ended up calling Seymour because I think Audrey was just a bit of a weird name. My dad's girlfriend's called Audrey and she's lovely, but I couldn't really call my plant Audrey as well. I actually bought a Lego, which is arriving tomorrow. Spooky Lego, Audrey 2. I can't wait to do it. I'm going to film it. I'm going to put it on my story on my Instagram. And just quickly, I will explain the reason why I have been doing Lego recently. I'm not usually a Lego person. However, there has been, just on a really real level, a lot of death around me recently. And I know you can say that I do ghost stories, you know, I should be okay with all that kind of stuff. But the people who have passed away around me have been very young. And it's taken a lot to like adjust. The first was my uncle, but then there was 2 other people recently who have passed away. And it's just tragic, like really, really tragic. And I know that we all have our own way of processing grief. And I talk about it in every episode now. I seem to manage to find a way to talk about grief in every episode. But I always feel called to talk about these things. And hopefully there's someone out there listening and this helps them. But I think it's really important that you find an outlet. Without going into too much detail, it affects my nephew, my eldest nephew, who's only 12. And I just happened to have these botanical Legos that I was going to do. And we got this news and it was absolutely awful. And I just basically took it in the living room and he started to do it with me. And we just sat there and we did it together. And it was our only focus and it took our minds off this horrific news. And it became like our little thing that we do. And I was just really concerned for him and wanted to make sure that he felt loved and supported and everything like that. So it kind of just then carried on into doing the World Cup Lego. As it obviously, I don't want to give too many details away, but it was just awful what happened, and it just brought him so much joy. And he really felt like England should win, and they should have won, but that's just life. But he really wanted to like lift it if England won and be like, yeah. Sadly didn't get that moment, but we built it together, and I just really hope that when he looks back at this time that he feels really supported, and it's just really helped me to process a lot of the grief that's been going on. So that's why Lego. That's why I didn't realize that sitting down, sorting all the little bits into groups and getting like the booklet and just following all of the stages and then like actually building it is so meditative. It's so like relaxing. It really just helps you be present without being present in your grief, if that makes sense. So if you see me doing Lego a lot and you see little hands in there because my nephew is helping me, the reason isn't just because it's Lego, it's because it's a place and a space where we can just connect and let all of those sad thoughts go, I guess. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I just think, God, people are just going to think I like Lego for the sake of liking Lego. I never have. Obviously, there's a deeper reason to it now, and I'm banging on. But I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for just everything, for listening, for being here. And I am going to definitely go and eat my cheeseburger now that I've lowered the mood. You guys take care, and I'll see you soon.